The streetlights flickered on as the sun dipped below the city skyline. Maya pressed her small hands against the cold glass doors of the Grand Symphony Hall, her breath creating little clouds of fog on the window. Inside, she could see children, her age, walking through the marble lobby with their parents. Their shoes clicked against the polished floor. Their clothes looked warm and new. Some carried instrument cases that probably cost more than everything Maya owned in the world, which was nothing. Maya was 8 years old, though she looked younger because she didn't eat enough. Her dress, donated from a church charity box 3 months ago, now had holes in it. Her sneakers were held together with duct tape her little brother had found behind a hardware store. Her dark hair hung in tangles around her thin face. But if you looked past all of that, if you really looked at her eyes, you'd see something special. They were alive with wonder, especially when music drifted through those heavy doors. You again? The security guard's voice made her jump. His name was Mr. Lin, and most days he wasn't mean, just tired. Maya, you can't keep hanging around here. The fancy people complain. I know, Mr. Lin, I'm sorry, I just wanted to listen for a minute. Maya's voice was soft, barely above a whisper. She'd learned early in life that quiet children got in less trouble. Mr. Lin sighed, looking down at the girl who showed up almost every evening. Where's your brother? He's sleeping, in our spot. She didn't say where their spot was. Adults asked too many questions when you told them you slept in cardboard boxes behind the Chinese restaurant 2 blocks away. The guard's face softened. He glanced back at the empty lobby. 5 minutes, you can sit on that bench right inside the door, but if anyone asks, you're waiting for your mother. Got it? Maya's face lit up like he'd just handed her $1 million. Thank you, Mr. Lin. Thank you so much. She slipped through the door he held open and sat perfectly still on the velvet bench, afraid that even breathing too loud might get her kicked out. From somewhere deep inside the building, she heard it. Piano music. Not just any piano music, but something that made her chest feel tight and her eyes sting with tears she didn't understand. This was why she came here every single day. 6 months ago, her mother had died. Maya didn't like to think about it much. One day her mother had been there, weak and coughing in their shelter bed, and the next day she was gone. The social workers had come asking questions, filling out forms. Maya had grabbed her 5-year-old brother's hand and they'd run. She'd heard stories about what happened to kids in the system, about brothers and sisters being split up and sent to different homes. That wasn't going to happen. She'd promised her mother she'd keep them together. Living on the streets was hard, scary even, but at least they were together. And then one evening, running from some teenagers who'd stolen their food, Maya had ducked into the alley beside this concert hall. She'd heard something floating out from an open window. Music. Piano music. She'd stood there in the rain, frozen, listening to sounds she'd never heard before. It was like the notes reached right into her chest and touched something deep inside. That was the night Maya fell in love with the piano. Now sitting on this bench, she closed her eyes and let the music wash over her. She didn't know what the piece was called. She didn't know anything about music, really. But she knew how it made her feel. Safe. Warm. Like maybe the world wasn't entirely cold and hard. Time's up, kid. Mr. Lin's voice pulled her back to reality. Maya nodded and stood up, careful not to dirty the fancy bench with her clothes. Thank you, Mr. Lin. As she walked back into the evening air, her stomach growled. She and her brother hadn't eaten since yesterday morning when a kind woman at the bakery had given them day-old bread. But Maya didn't head toward the restaurant dumpsters yet. Instead, she walked around to the back of the concert hall. She'd discovered something 3 weeks ago, a door that the cleaning crew propped open with a bucket while they worked. If she was quiet enough, small enough, invisible enough, she could slip inside and hide in the shadows of the backstage area. She could watch. The bucket was there. The door was open. Maya's heart pounded as she crept inside, moving like a mouse along the dark walls. She knew every shadow now, every corner where she could tuck herself away. Behind the old stage curtains, under the broken chairs stacked in the storage area, places where nobody looked. Tonight, a girl about her age was practicing on the stage. The girl wore a blue dress with a white collar. Her black shoes were shiny. Her hair was pulled back in a perfect ponytail with a ribbon that matched her dress. A woman sat in the front row, probably her mother, calling out instructions. "Keep your wrists up, Lily, you're dropping them again." "Yes, mother." "And that tempo is all wrong. From the top. Again." Maya watched as Lily's fingers moved across the piano keys. She watched how the girl's hands curved, how her feet reached for the pedals, how she sat up straight on the bench. Maya memorized every movement, every position. In her mind, she played along, imagining her own fingers on those keys. She'd been doing this for weeks now, watching different students practice. Some were good, some made mistakes, some played with feeling, and others just seemed to be going through the motions. Maya absorbed it all like a sponge. When the practice session ended and Lily and her mother left, Maya stayed hidden. The cleaning crew would be here soon, but she had a few minutes. She looked at that piano sitting alone on the stage, lit by a single work light. Her feet moved before her brain told them to. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. If she got caught, Mr. Lynn might never let her inside again. But the pull was too strong. Maya walked onto that stage like she was in a dream. The piano was enormous up close, black and shiny. She could see her reflection in it, small and dirty and out of place. Slowly, carefully, she reached out one finger and pressed a single white key. The note rang out in the empty hall, pure and clear and beautiful. Maya's breath caught. She pressed another key. Then another. They weren't the same notes Lily had been playing. They weren't anything really, just sounds, but they were sounds she was making, with her own hands. "Hey, what are you doing up there?" A flashlight beam hit her face. Maya ran, her heart hammering in her chest. She flew down the backstage steps, through the corridors she'd mapped out in her mind, and burst out the back door into the night. She didn't stop running until she reached the cardboard box where her brother slept, curled up with the thin blanket they shared. She was breathing hard, terrified they'd call the police, terrified she'd never be able to go back. But she was also smiling, because for 30 seconds she'd touched a real piano. She'd made music even if it was just random notes. And that feeling, that incredible feeling of her fingers on those keys, was something nobody could take away from her. Not ever. Maya lay, down next to her brother, pulling the blanket over both of them. In her mind, she replayed every note Lily had practiced that evening. Her fingers moved in the air, practicing the positions she'd memorized. Someday, she thought, someday she'd play that piano for real. Not stolen seconds in an empty hall, but really play. She didn't know how. She didn't know when. But as she drifted off to sleep in that cardboard box, hungry and cold and completely alone in the world except for her little brother, Maya held on to that dream like it was the only thing keeping her alive, because it was. 3 weeks passed since that night Maya touched the piano. 3 weeks of hiding in the shadows, watching, learning. Her fingers had become permanently stained from picking through garbage, but in her mind, they danced across ivory keys every single night. She'd gotten bolder, or maybe just more desperate to be near the music. Now she knew the schedule by heart. Tuesday afternoons, the advanced students practiced. Wednesday evenings, the beginners stumbled through simple scales. Thursday nights, a teacher with kind eyes and gray hair would stay late, playing pieces that made Maya want to cry and smile at the same time. Her brother, Tommy, had started asking questions. "Why do we always come here?" he'd asked yesterday, his 5-year-old face scrunched up in confusion. "There's no food here." "There's something better than food," Maya had told him. "Nothing's better than food." Tommy had rubbed his empty stomach, and Maya's heart had broken a little more. He was right, of course. But she couldn't explain to a 5-year-old why music mattered, why those sounds floating from the concert hall felt like the only thing keeping her from giving up entirely. On this particular Saturday afternoon, something was different. People were streaming into the concert hall early, more than usual. Maya saw families, news cameras, and tables being set up in the lobby with cookies and punch. "What's happening?" Tommy tugged at her sleeve. Maya read the banner hanging above the entrance. She'd taught herself to read using newspapers she found in trash cans. Community Talent Showcase. Open to everyone. What's that mean? It means kids are going to perform. Play music and stuff. Maya felt her chest tighten with longing. To perform. To actually sit at that piano in front of people instead of hiding in the shadows like a rat. Can we go inside? There's food. Tommy had spotted the cookies. Maya knew they shouldn't. These events were for families with money. Kids who took real lessons. Not for street kids with dirty faces and no shoes that fit properly. But Tommy looked so hopeful and she could smell those cookies from here. We'll just peek inside. Just for a minute, Mr. Lin wasn't at his usual post. A younger guard stood there instead, distracted by his phone. Maya grabbed Tommy's hand and they slipped inside with a group of families. Nobody looked at them twice. Or maybe they did look and just decided to look away. That happened a lot. The lobby was packed. Maya found a corner where she and Tommy could watch without being noticed. A table of cookies sat 10 feet away. Tommy's eyes were locked on them like a dog watching a steak. Not yet, Maya whispered. Wait until nobody's looking. The showcase began. One by one, children walked onto the stage in the main hall. The doors were open wide so Maya could see everything. A boy played violin. Twin girls sang a duet. A teenager played something complicated on the piano that made the audience clap loudly. Then a girl in a purple dress sat at the piano. She was maybe 9 with perfect curls and a confident smile. Her fingers moved across the keys and Maya's breath caught. She'd heard this piece before. A student had practiced it last week. She'd watched every hand position, memorized every note. That's the one you hum, Tommy said. He was right. Maya had been humming this melody for days, driving her brother crazy with it. The girl finished to huge applause. She bowed, her dress fanning out around her, and walked off stage like a princess. Maya felt a sharp pain in her chest. That girl's life and Maya's life existed in completely different worlds. They might as well have lived on different planets. Technical difficulties, folks. A man's voice boomed through the hall. We're having some sound system issues. Give us about 20 minutes to fix it. Meanwhile, we've opened up the stage to anyone who'd like to share their talent. Any volunteers while we wait? The crowd murmured. Some people got up to get more cookies. Maya saw her chance and pulled Tommy toward the food table. They each grabbed 2 cookies and shoved them in their pockets for later, then took one to eat right away. The cookie tasted like heaven. Sweet and buttery and still warm. Anyone? Don't be shy. The announcer was still trying to fill time. This is a community event. Everyone's welcome to participate. That's when Tommy did something that changed everything. Before Maya could stop him, before she even understood what was happening, her little brother's hand shot up in the air. My sister plays piano. Maya's stomach dropped to her feet. Tommy, no. But the announcer had seen him. Wonderful. Come on up, young lady. Tommy, I can't. I don't really play. I've never even. You do too play. You practice all the time with your fingers. I see you. Tommy was pushing her forward, his small hands surprisingly strong. People were turning to look. Maya wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor. She tried to back away, but Tommy had caused enough of a scene that a woman in a fancy suit came over. Don't be nervous, sweetheart, the woman said, though her nose wrinkled slightly as she got closer. Maya knew she smelled bad. When you lived on the streets, there was no hiding it. Everyone gets stage fright. Come on, let's get you up there. Maya's feet moved like they belonged to someone else. She was walking through the crowd, aware of every eye on her, aware of her dirty clothes, her tangled hair, her taped-together shoes. The crowd parted like she was carrying a disease. She heard the whispers start before she even reached the stage. Is she homeless? Where are her parents? Oh my God, look at her feet. Maya climbed the steps to the stage, her legs shaking so badly she nearly tripped. The spotlight hit her and she stood there frozen, exposed, while hundreds of people stared at her. The silence was worse than the whispers. Then someone laughed. It started in the front row. A girl in an expensive-looking outfit, sitting with a group of other kids who all wore matching Music Academy jackets. The girl's laugh was high-pitched and cruel, and it spread like wildfire. More kids joined in. Then some adults started chuckling too, trying to hide it behind their hands, but not really trying that hard. You've got to be kidding me, someone said loud enough for everyone to hear. Maya's face burned. She wanted to run. She should run, but her feet wouldn't move. She stood there, frozen under the spotlight, while the laughter grew louder. A woman in the front row stood up. She was older, maybe 50, with perfectly styled hair and jewelry that probably cost more than a car. She looked at Maya with such disdain that it felt like a physical slap. This is ridiculous, the woman said to the person next to her, but loud enough for half the audience to hear. This is supposed to be a showcase of talent, not a charity case. Someone get her off the stage. More laughter. Maya's eyes found Tommy in the crowd. He looked confused, scared. He didn't understand why people were being mean. You? A man's voice called out from the audience, dripping with disbelief. Play this piano? That's a joke. The laughter reached a crescendo. People were pulling out their phones now, probably to record the entertainment of a dirty street kid embarrassing herself on stage. Maya's hands clenched into fists. She should leave. She should run away and never come back to this place. These people didn't want her here. She didn't belong in their world. But then something happened inside her. A spark of anger, maybe. Or pride, or just pure stubbornness. She'd spent weeks watching, learning, dreaming. She'd memorized every hand position, every movement, every note. She'd practiced with invisible keys in the air while other kids slept in warm beds. Maya took a breath and walked to the piano bench. The laughter got even louder. This is going to be good, someone said. Maya sat down, her dirty hands hovering over the clean white keys. The piano seemed to glow under the stage lights, beautiful and terrifying and impossible. The audience was loving this. Their laughter filled the hall. Someone whistled mockingly. The girl in the front row was practically doubled over. Maya closed her eyes. She thought about her mother. She thought about all those nights hiding backstage, soaking up music like it was oxygen. She thought about Tommy believing in her even when she didn't believe in herself. And then she placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. The very first note silenced the laughter, like someone had flipped a switch. The first note hung in the air like magic, clear and pure and impossible to ignore. Maya's fingers found the second note, then the third. She was playing the piece she'd watched that girl practice last week. The one she'd hummed to Tommy until he begged her to stop. The one she'd played in her mind 1,000 times while lying in that cardboard box. Her hands remembered. Even though she'd never touched these specific keys before, never sat at this exact piano, her fingers knew where to go. They curved the way she'd seen them curve. They pressed down with the gentle pressure she'd watched so carefully. The melody began to take shape. Maya kept her eyes closed. If she opened them, she'd see all those faces staring at her. She'd remember she was just a street kid with no right to be here, so she stayed in the darkness behind her eyelids where there was only music. She made mistakes. Her left hand stumbled over a chord. She hit a wrong note and winced, but she didn't stop. She pushed through, finding her way back to the melody like someone feeling their way through a dark room. The concert hall had gone completely silent. In the front row, the woman with the expensive jewelry sat frozen, her mouth slightly open. The girl who'd laughed the loudest had stopped mid-giggle, her hand still covering her mouth. The man who'd called this a joke was leaning forward in his seat, his eyes wide. Nobody was laughing now. Maya's fingers danced across the keys, telling a story she didn't have words for. Every note carried something: hunger, loneliness, cold nights and empty stomachs, the fear of losing her brother, the ache of missing her mother, but also hope. Stubborn, ridiculous hope that somehow things could be different. She reached the hardest part, the section where the girl in purple had practiced over and over last week. Maya's hands hesitated for just a second. She could hear the teacher's voice in her memory. "Keep your wrists up, Lily. You're dropping them again." Maya lifted her wrists. Her fingers found the notes, one after another like stepping stones across a river. She was almost there. Almost through the difficult part, and then she made it. The melody opened up into something beautiful, something that made her chest feel like it might burst. She'd heard this part echoing through the concert hall late at night. She'd wondered what it would feel like to create those sounds herself instead of just listening. Now she knew. It felt like flying. The piece she'd chosen was only about 3 minutes long, but it felt like 3 hours and 3 seconds at the same time. Maya's fingers moved through the final measures, softer now. Gentler. The last note faded into silence, and only then did she open her eyes. The stage lights blinded her at first. She blinked, trying to see the audience, trying to understand why nobody was saying anything. Then one person started clapping, then another. Then the entire concert hall exploded into applause. Maya sat frozen on the piano bench, her hands still resting on the keys. She didn't understand what was happening. People were standing up. The woman with the jewelry had tears running down her cheeks. The man who'd mocked her was clapping so hard his hands must have hurt. Tommy was jumping up and down in the back, screaming, "That's my sister! That's my sister!" at anyone who would listen. Maya stood up slowly, unsure of what to do. Should she bow? Should she run? Her legs felt like water. The applause kept going, wave after wave of it crashing over her. She stumbled off the stage and into Tommy's arms. He hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. "You were so good," he said. "You were so good." "I made mistakes," Maya whispered. "I hit wrong notes. I couldn't even tell." People were crowding around them now. Adults with phones out, filming. Kids staring at her like she'd just performed actual magic. Maya felt panic rising in her chest. Too many people. Too close. She needed to run. "Excuse me. Excuse me, please." A voice cut through the crowd. The woman with the jewelry pushed through, and Maya braced herself for more insults. More mockery. But the woman's face was different now. Soft. Almost kind. "Young lady, that was extraordinary," the woman said. "Who's your teacher?" Maya stared at the ground. "I don't have one." "You don't? What do you mean you don't have a teacher?" "You must be studying with someone." I just watched. From the shadows. When people practice here, the crowd had gone quiet again, listening. Maya felt her face burn with shame. She shouldn't have said that. Now they'd know she'd been sneaking in, hiding where she wasn't supposed to be. "You learned to play by watching?" The woman's voice had changed. There was something in it now that Maya couldn't identify. Without lessons? Without even touching a piano? "I touched one once 3 weeks ago. Just for a minute before someone chased me away." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. A man with a camera pushed forward. "I'm from Channel 7 News. Can I ask you some questions?" "I'm from the City Times," another person called out. "How long have you been homeless?" "Homeless?" Someone in the crowd gasped. Maya grabbed Tommy's hand. This was bad. This was very bad. Questions meant attention. Attention meant social services. Social services meant being split up. "We have to go," Maya said. "Wait." The jewelry woman held up her hand. "Please wait. My name is Mrs. Rothschild. I run the Harmony Music Academy downtown." "What you just did?" "Child, that was remarkable. You have a gift." "I don't have anything," Maya said. She was edging toward the exit now, pulling Tommy with her. "I want to offer you something. A full scholarship to my academy. Lessons, performance opportunities, everything," the crowd murmured. The girl who'd laughed earlier looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Maya stopped. "A scholarship? Real lessons. Legitimate access to pianos instead of sneaking around like a criminal." It sounded like a dream. "Too good to be true, I can't," she said finally. "Why not?" "Because social services would find them. Because the moment she showed up at a fancy music school, someone would ask questions about her parents, about where she lived. Because dreams like this didn't come true for kids like her. I just can't." Maya turned and ran, Tommy's hand in hers. She heard people calling after her, but she didn't stop. They burst through the concert hall doors into the evening air and kept running. Past the familiar streets. Past their usual spots. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs ached. Finally, they collapsed in an alley 6 blocks away, gasping for breath. "Why'd we leave?" Tommy asked. "That lady wanted to help us. It's complicated. You could have real lessons. You could play piano every day. And they'd put us in foster care. They'd split us up, Tommy. I promised Mom I'd keep us together." Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "But you were so happy when you played." "I've never seen you look like that." Maya's throat tightened. He was right. For those 3 minutes on stage, she'd felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. "We should go back to our spot," she said instead of answering. They walked slowly through the darkening streets. Maya kept expecting police cars to come looking for them, but none did. Maybe nobody cared enough to chase after 2 homeless kids. Maybe they'd already forgotten. When they finally reached their cardboard box behind the restaurant, Maya found something waiting for them. A business card tucked under the edge of their makeshift shelter. She picked it up, tilting it toward the streetlight to read. "Mrs. Rothschild, Director, Harmony Music Academy," it said. Below that, a phone number. And at the bottom, written in pen, "When you're ready." No questions asked. Just music. Maya stared at the card for a long time. Tommy fell asleep beside her, exhausted from the day's excitement. But Maya stayed awake, that business card clutched in her hand, feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Dangerous. Terrifying, beautiful hope. She didn't know it yet, but tomorrow morning she'd wake up to find everything changed. The video of her performance was already going viral online. News trucks were already planning their stories. And somewhere across the city, a woman was watching that video for the 5th time. Tears streaming down her face, making a decision that would alter the course of Maya's life forever. But tonight, Maya just held that business card and allowed herself to imagine, to dream of a life where she didn't have to hide in shadows, where her hands could touch piano keys whenever she wanted, where music wasn't stolen in secret moments but belonged to her as much as it belonged to anyone else. Tonight, for the first time in a very long time, Maya let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, impossible things could happen. Maya woke up to Tommy shaking her shoulder frantically. Maya, wake up! Something's happening. She blinked in the early morning light, confused. Tommy was holding someone's phone. Where'd he gotten a phone? That man gave it to me, Tommy said, pointing to a small crowd gathering at the end of the alley. He said we need to see this. Maya sat up, her back aching from sleeping on cardboard. The phone screen showed a video.
Her video.
She was on stage at the concert hall, her hands on the piano keys. The title above it read, Homeless 8-year-old's incredible piano performance stuns elite concert hall. The view count made her stomach drop. 2 million views, in less than 12 hours. Give that back, Maya said, trying to hand the phone to the man. But he was filming them now, along with 3 other people holding cameras and phones. Maya, is it? Channel 7 News. Can you tell us where you learned to play? How long have you been living on the streets? What happened to your parents? Do you have a message for our viewers? Maya grabbed Tommy and pushed past them, running deeper into the alley. But when they reached the street, more cameras were waiting. News vans lined the block. People were everywhere. There she is! They ran in the other direction, cutting through side streets Maya knew by heart. Finally, they lost the crowd and collapsed behind a dumpster, breathing hard. What's happening? Tommy asked, his eyes wide with fear. I don't know. But she did know. The video had spread. Now everyone knew about them. About her. And that meant only one thing. Social services would come. They spent the day moving from place to place, trying to stay ahead of the news crews. But it was impossible. The video was everywhere. Maya saw it playing on a TV through a store window. Heard people talking about it on the street. Watched strangers pointing and whispering when they walked by. By evening, they were exhausted and starving. Maya risked going to their usual spot behind the Chinese restaurant, hoping the owner might have leftover rice. Instead, she found 2 women in official-looking clothes waiting for them. Maya, Tommy? The younger woman smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made Maya's skin crawl. We're from Child Protective Services. We've been looking for you. Maya turned to run, but the older woman stepped in front of her. Please don't run. We're here to help. You can't keep living like this. You're just children. We're fine, Maya said. We don't need help. Sweetie, you're sleeping in cardboard boxes. When's the last time you had a real meal? When's the last time you saw a doctor? Tommy's stomach growled loudly, answering for them. We have a nice foster home ready for Tommy, the younger woman said. And we're working on finding a placement for you, Maya. Somewhere you'll be safe. No. Maya's voice was steel. We stay together. It's not always possible to keep siblings together, especially when there's such an age gap. But we'll try our best. I said no. Maya grabbed Tommy's hand and ran. Again. She heard the women calling after them, but she didn't stop. They ran until the voices faded, until her legs were screaming and Tommy was crying. They ended up in a park, hiding under a bridge as the sun set. Tommy was sobbing now, scared and confused and tired. I'm sorry, Maya whispered, holding him. I'm so sorry, I'm hungry, Tommy cried. I'm so hungry and I'm scared. Those ladies said we could have food and beds and they'd split us up. Don't you understand? They'd send you to one house and me to another. I promised, Mom, I promised! But I'm tired of being hungry. Tommy's voice broke. I'm tired of being cold and scared and running all the time. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad if we were in different houses. At least we'd be safe. Maya felt like someone had punched her in the chest. Tommy wanted to give up. After everything, after all her fighting to keep them together, he wanted to give up. She couldn't even be angry with him. He was 5 years old. Of course he was tired. Of course he wanted food and warmth and safety. What kind of sister was she? Dragging him through this life when there were people offering something better. Okay, she whispered. Okay, tomorrow morning we'll go to those ladies. We'll let them help. Tommy fell asleep in her arms, finally calm. But Maya stayed awake all night, watching the stars through the bridge's support beams, feeling like her heart was breaking into a million pieces. The next morning, they walked slowly back toward the concert hall. Maya had decided that's where they'd turn themselves in. At least it was familiar. At least she could see the place where her dream had briefly come true before it all fell apart. But when they arrived, the scene was chaos. More news vans, more cameras. Someone had set up a donation table. People were gathering, and Maya caught pieces of their conversations. Disgrace that children live like this in our city. School board refused to comment. Harmony music. Academy under fire for not helping sooner? A familiar voice cut through the noise. This is exploitation. You're using that poor child's situation for views and clicks, and none of you actually care about helping her. Maya peeked around the corner. The girl who'd laughed at her stood there, red-faced, yelling at a news crew. The girl from the front row with the Music Academy jacket. My dad is the security guard here, the girl continued. He told me that child has been coming here for months and nobody helped her. Not the fancy parents, not the rich people with their scholarships. Everyone just looked away. That's Mr. Lynn's daughter, Tommy whispered. Maya remembered now. She'd seen this girl before, coming to visit her father at work. The girl who'd mocked her from the front row. A reporter pushed a microphone toward the girl. You're on video laughing at her performance. Don't you think that's hypocritical? The girl's face crumpled. I know. I know what I did, and I'm so sorry. I was awful. I was cruel. I can't take it back, but I can do better now. We all can do better. Maya felt something shift inside her. Maybe people could change. Maybe shame could turn into something better. Excuse me, please. A new voice, calm but commanding. The crowd parted for a woman in her 60s, Asian with silver-streaked hair pulled into a bun. She wore simple clothes, carried a worn leather bag, and moved with the kind of quiet confidence that made people listen. I'm looking for a young girl named Maya and her brother, the woman said. I have something important to discuss with them. Mrs. Rothschild pushed forward. Who are you? I've already offered Maya a scholarship to my academy. I'm sure you have. The woman's voice was polite but firm. My name is Dr. Helen Tanaka. I taught piano at Juilliard for 30 years before I retired. I watched that video 15 times last night. She paused and her voice softened. In my entire career, I've never seen such raw natural talent. And I've certainly never seen a child teach themselves to play by watching from the shadows. We all want to help her, Mrs. Rothschild said. But she ran. Child Services is looking for her and her brother. I know. Dr. Tanaka pulled out her phone. I've spent all night making arrangements. I have an emergency foster license. I have a home with 2 spare bedrooms. I have a piano. She looked directly at the cameras. Maya, if you can hear this, I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you a chance. Come stay with me. You and your brother together. No one will split you up. I'll handle the social workers, the paperwork, all of it. All I ask is that you let me teach you properly. Let me help you become the pianist you're meant to be. Maya felt Tommy grip her hand tighter. She looked down at him and he looked up at her with hope shining in his eyes. She said, together. Tommy whispered. She said we stay together. Maya's mind raced. This could be a trick. Another false promise. But something about this woman felt different. There was no pity in her voice. No charity. Just respect, like Maya was a real person with real potential instead of a sad story to make people feel good about themselves. What do we do? Tommy asked. Maya thought about her mother, about the promise she'd made, about the music that lived inside her, fighting to get out, about the choice between safety and dreams and how maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to choose. She took a deep breath, squeezed Tommy's hand, and stepped out from behind the corner. The crowd saw her immediately. Cameras swung in her direction. Voices called out. But Maya only looked at Dr. Tanaka, searching the woman's face for truth. Dr. Tanaka met her eyes and smiled. Not a pitying smile, not a fake smile, just a small, genuine smile that said, I see you. I understand. Trust me. Maya walked forward slowly, Tommy beside her, toward the woman who was offering them something Maya had almost stopped believing existed, a real chance at something better. 1 year later, Maya stood backstage at the same concert hall, but everything was different now. She wore a simple navy blue dress that Dr. Tanaka had helped her pick out. Nothing fancy, Nothing that would make her feel like she was pretending to be someone she wasn't. Her hair was clean and brushed, pulled back with a plain clip. Her shoes actually fit, but the biggest difference wasn't what she wore on the outside. It was what had changed inside. The first few months living with Dr. Tanaka had been harder than Maya expected. She'd thought that having access to a real piano, real lessons, a real home would make everything perfect. But perfect wasn't real life. She'd cried the first time Dr. Tanaka corrected her hand position. "I've been doing it this way for months," Maya had protested. "I know," Dr. Tanaka had said gently, "and you did remarkably well teaching yourself. But now we need to rebuild some habits so you don't hurt yourself or limit what you can play." Starting over felt like failure. Maya had fought it. She'd gotten angry, frustrated, wanted to quit. There were nights she'd hidden in her room, missing the simplicity of just watching from the shadows. Back then, piano was pure magic. Now it was work. Hard, sometimes boring, often frustrating work. Reading music was torture. All those little dots and lines made no sense. Kids who'd been taking lessons since they were 3 could sight-read pieces that Maya had to practice for weeks. She felt stupid, behind like she'd never catch up. Tommy had adjusted faster than she had. He loved having his own bed, regular meals, going to school. He'd made friends. He was happy. Sometimes Maya felt guilty that she wasn't happier, wasn't more grateful. Dr. Tanaka never pushed. Never made her feel bad for struggling. She just kept showing up every afternoon for lessons, patient and steady as the sunrise. Talent isn't enough, Dr. Tanaka had told her one particularly frustrating day. Talent gets you started. Discipline gets you where you want to go. It was the discipline that nearly broke her. Scales, exercises, the same passages over and over and over until her fingers ached and her mind went numb. This wasn't the romantic dream of playing piano. This was the grinding, unglamorous reality of actually learning to do it right. But slowly something shifted. Her fingers started moving more freely. The notes on the page started making sense. The pieces that had seemed impossible became merely difficult, then challenging, then achievable. And somewhere along the way, Maya fell in love with piano all over again. Not the fantasy version, the real version. The work and the reward, the frustration and the breakthrough, the way a piece could sound terrible for days and then suddenly magically come together. Now, standing backstage at the youth classical music competition, Maya felt ready. Not perfect, not the best, but ready. Nervous? Tommy appeared beside her, grinning. He was 6 now, growing like a weed, and had recently lost his 2 front teeth. Terrified, Maya admitted. "You'll be great. You're always great." "That's not true. Last week I completely butchered that Chopin piece." "Yeah, but then you got better. You always get better." Dr. Tanaka joined them, carrying bottles of water. 5 minutes until you're up." "How are you feeling?" "Like I might throw up." "Good, that means you care." Dr. Tanaka smiled. "Remember, this isn't about winning. It's about showing yourself how far you've come." Maya nodded, but her stomach still churned. The competition was fierce. She'd heard some of the other kids practicing. There was a 12-year-old prodigy who'd been playing since he was 3 and had already won national competitions. A pair of twins who played duets that made grown men cry. Kids from prestigious music schools with private tutors and every advantage. And then there was Maya. 1 year of proper training. Still catching up on things other students had learned years ago. Maya Chen, that was her now. Maya Chen. Dr. Tanaka had officially fostered them 6 months ago, and they'd taken her last name. It felt strange and wonderful at the same time, having a last name that connected them to someone who cared. As Maya walked toward the stage entrance, someone called her name. She turned and saw Mr. Lin's daughter standing there. The girl who'd laughed. The girl who'd later defended her. They'd run into each other a few times over the past year. The encounters had been awkward at first. "Hey," the girl said. Her name was Victoria, Maya had learned. "I just wanted to say good luck and I'm sorry. Again, I know I've said it before, but I'm still sorry." Maya looked at Victoria for a moment. A year ago, she would have held on to that anger, used it as fuel. But Dr. Tanaka had taught her something else. "I know you are," Maya said. "Thank you." Victoria smiled, relieved, and Maya felt something loosen in her chest. Forgiveness, she'd learned, wasn't about the other person. It was about not letting the past weigh you down. Maya walked onto the stage. The same stage where she'd been mocked. The same piano where she'd played through tears and fury and desperate hope. But today felt different. The audience was smaller. This was just a regional youth competition, not some viral moment. The people here were mostly family members, music teachers, competition judges, no news crews. No cameras except for parents recording their kids. Maya preferred it this way. She sat at the piano and adjusted the bench. Took a breath. Placed her hands over the keys. She was playing a Beethoven sonata today. Not the flashiest choice. Not the hardest piece in the competition. But it was the piece that spoke to her. The piece that felt like telling her own story through music. She began to play. This time there was no desperate emotion. No raw survival instinct. This was different. This was control. Technique. Understanding. She knew what every note meant, why the composer had chosen it, how it fit into the larger structure. But she also brought something those technical prodigies couldn't replicate. She brought lived experience. She brought the memory of cold nights and empty stomachs, the fear of losing her brother, the miracle of being given a second chance. Every emotion poured through her fingers into the keys. She made fewer mistakes than that first performance. Her technique was cleaner, her understanding deeper, but something about it felt less magical, and Maya had made peace with that. Magic was for beginners. Mastery was for those who stuck around after the magic wore off and did the work anyway. When she finished, the applause was warm and genuine. Not the shocked viral moment roar from a year ago, just appreciation. Respect. Maya bowed and walked off stage feeling lighter than she had in months. The results came 2 hours later. Third place. A 12-year-old genius took first. The duet twins took second. Maya won third, and she found that she didn't mind at all. Third place meant a small trophy and a scholarship for continued lessons. But more than that, it meant validation. She belonged here. Not as a novelty or a feel-good story, but as a real musician with real skills she'd earned through real work. After the ceremony, Dr. Tanaka hugged her tight. "I'm so proud of you. I didn't win. You won everything that matters." Tommy crashed into them, wrapping his arms around both of them. "Can we get ice cream, please?" "Maya deserves ice cream." As they walked out of the concert hall into the evening sunshine, Maya looked back at the building one last time. A year ago, she'd pressed her face against those glass doors, convinced she'd never belong inside. Now she was walking out with a trophy, a family, and a future. She still practiced every day, still struggled with difficult pieces, still had moments where she wanted to quit. But now she knew the secret that only people who'd made it through the hard parts understood. The struggle was the point. The work was the reward. And the music, when it finally came together, was worth every frustrating, exhausting, beautiful moment. Maya Chen, who'd once been nobody, who'd once been just a dirty street kid that people laughed at, had become exactly who she was meant to be, not a prodigy, not a viral sensation, not a perfect success story, just a girl who loved music enough to fight for it, who had people who loved her enough to fight for her, who had learned that sometimes the best victories weren't about coming in first place. They were about showing up, doing the work, and becoming a little bit better than you were yesterday. That night, after Tommy fell asleep, Maya sat at the piano in Dr. Tanaka's living room. She didn't practice any competition pieces. She just played the simple melody she'd created a year ago, the one about her mother, the one about cold nights and impossible dreams. But now she added to it. New notes about warm beds and second chances, about families you choose and dreams that came true in unexpected ways, about the distance between that cardboard box and this piano bench, and how every single step of the journey mattered. Dr. Tanaka appeared in the doorway, listening quietly. When Maya finished, the older woman smiled. "What's that piece called?" Maya thought for a moment. Then she smiled back. "It's called Home."